Welcome to the very first BuildingWorks webinar. This evening I'm going to be showing how to do an extension which I'm going to put on the side of a bungalow, and also how to do some of the renovation tasks within BuildingWorks. So to start off with, I'm going to create myself a new project. I'm going to create this as a drawing and an estimate. I'm going to use an A1 plan just because it gives me lots of space to work with, 81 1 to 100. And the first thing I'm going to make sure that I'm using is the extension labor productivity profile. Just to explain this, there are 3 different profiles. The new build is the fastest way of building, followed by extension, and followed by renovation. And what we do is with the extension and renovation, we take into account the fact that it takes longer to build these on certain tasks because there tends to be a lot more lugging materials around. For example, bricks have to be lugged from generally from the road to the back of a property, as opposed to where a new build would probably dropped right next to where the bricklayer is, that kind of thing. And of course, you have to take a bit more care when you're working around a existing property to not damage it, stand on the flowers, that kind of thing. So I'm going to use an extension productivity profile. I'm going to skip the project detail screens because that's basically just me typing in somebody's address. I'm sure you all know how to do that. So I'm going to now create my project. Okay, so this is BuildingWorks main screen. On the left-hand side, we have our project tree, and on here we can see we have the drawing module and also the estimate module side by side, so you can actually flick between the two. We also have our build program, which is for our Gantt chart, our reports, and then we have options like the bill of quants reports, and of course our customer quotes. The middle is our drawing area, and over on the right-hand side, we have a variety of tabs which have things like our 3D drawing, our layer control, and extra items and such like, which we'll be popping up and having a look at as we go through. Now, to start off with, what I'm going to do is quickly draw just a pretend sort of quick bungalow, which we're going to then put an extension on the side of. So I'm just going to draw the shell of the bungalow and just a couple of rooms inside and put a roof on it, just to quickly show how we can draw an existing property as an example, so that we can then use the existing property to attach and tee in our proposed extension. What I'm also going to do is show you how to do some renovation of the existing property using the rooms function. So to start off with, I'm going to draw my existing shell walls. So I'm going to start by selecting the external wall button at the top. We have an array of wall structure types. Now for my existing walls, I just need something that matches up with what we've already got. When we come later on to actually building our new walls, we can have a look a bit more at the choices here. I'm going to do this all as brick and block just for simplicity's reasons. When we choose a wall, we then get given options for specifications. I want to come back to these in a little bit when we actually produce our proposed extension. To start off with, I'm going to draw an existing wall. So this will create a wall that has no cost, but it still has physical properties such as length, height, and width. That can then be used later on when we are placing structural openings. For example, it knows what the existing wall is to create a cost for spoil removal. So I'm going to start on my existing wall, click next. I'm going to tell it it's a ground floor. And now it wants some details of my existing wall. I'm just going to draw this with a 2400 single story wall. And I've got my sort of length, width, cavity. So I'm going to draw this, as you say here, basically just a 300 wide wall. Okay, you could adjust this up and down to suit. So some buildings might have no cavity or a very thin cavity. If it's say a 1940s, 1950s house, a lot of them were built without any insulation, and you would adjust that to suit, because again that would adjust the calculations for spoil, etc. Once I've done that, I'm going to click finish. I'm now ready to draw. So I'm going to click on my drawing. If I zoom in here, I'm now ready to start drawing some walls. Now, quite often you might actually have a plan sent to you from an architect. You can actually import that and trace over the top of it. Tonight, I'm going to do this sort of freehand. Now, I'm going to use my arrow keys to draw, which is very, very simple. So if I want to draw a wall in this direction, I'm going to press the right arrow on my keyboard. This gives me a box, and then I can just type in a length of wall. So I'm just going to draw a wall 8,000 long, so 8 meters. I'm going to press enter. Okay. I can then draw downwards, so I'm going to press my down arrow key. I'm going to draw a wall that's 10 meters. So I'm going to go 10,000 and press enter. Simple as that. And I can now repeat that process. If I want to be really lazy, we actually have some hotkeys, and one of them is the S key here to square. If I hit the S key, that will automatically square from a building and draw the rest of my property for me. Okay, so that's my building drawn. You'll notice in the bottom right hand corner we have an estimate cost of £0, which is correct because this is existing walls. It doesn't want to have a price. Now, one of the reasons we do draw an existing wall is if I put an opening in it, such as a door or window, it's actually going to ask me what we want to do with that door or window. So I'm just going to pick a front door to give you an example. We have a huge array of doors into the software, all sorts of different widths and heights. I'm just going to pick this one here for example purposes. Go with the standard reveal depth. I'm just going to place this front door over here. Now, when I place that, because this is an existing wall, it's actually now going to it's now going to ask me, are we forming a new opening? So is this actually a new door going into an existing wall? Are we actually replacing a door, an existing door? Or in fact, is this going to be just an existing door that's already there that we're just putting in for visual representation? Okay, so it's very clever. So it actually, you tell it what you want to do, whether you want to have no cost, some cost, or the complete cost. So if we chose the top option there, that would actually cost for forming an opening, fitting a lintel, supplying and fitting the door, and then making good. For this example, I'm going to say this is an existing front door, just so I can put it in so that the 3D looks nice. And you'll see I've got a door in there, and we still have no cost. And we can flick to our 3D model. And that's now starting to build up for us. So next, I'm just going to put in a couple of internal walls, just so I've got a little bit of a room layout. My room designs are always nothing you would ever use in real life, so I apologise beforehand for how appalling my room design is. Again, you can see we have an array of internal walls. I'm just going to put in a block single skin wall. Again, I'm going to put in an existing one so it has no cost. Just do a ground floor. Again, give it height to 2400. And I'm just going to put a few walls in just to give myself some rooms. Okay, as I mentioned before, my house designs are always dreadful. And again, I'm just going to plop a few doors into here, and that will make more sense later on. So I'm going to have some internal doors. Just have some 838s. Again, it's asking me what I want to do, and again, I'm going to say that this is an existing door in an existing wall. And once I've told it to do that, just keep repeating that process for some other ones. Now I've actually accidentally drawn one of those doors in with a cost there. So you see I've got a cost down here of £621. So I choose the wrong option. So what I can do is I can go up here and I can say, please select the new items, and I can actually see which door I've drawn accidentally as a costed door. So I can now just delete that because I don't want it. Okay, I'll come back to these later on just to explain why I've done that. Okay, so we've now got our 3D model building up with our doors. And then the last part I want to put here is I'm just going to put an existing roof on. The reason that I'm going to put an existing roof on is when I do my new extension in the side, if I want to tee it into a roof, I need the existing one there so it creates the correct valley structure. Now, a quick explanation here on roofs. As you can see, we have a big array of roofs. So we've got all the normal cut roofs, truss roofs, we've also got SIPs, flat roofs as well. We also have options down here for roof retiling and roof refurbishment. Now the way these work is that if you had a job where you were retiling a roof, you would actually draw the roof using the roof retiling tool. So when you go through that process, you can actually then specify how many tiles you're retiling, how much are the felt, the battens, etc., and go through that process. Or a roof refurbishment will actually let you go as far as complete or partial structure removal, again for tiles and battens, and also things like your fascias, your barge boards, and the guttering. So everything to do with a roof demolition, full demolition or partial demolition, and a rebuild with that option. So you would choose this option. You then go through the specification where you can set how many tiles you're going to reuse, etc., how many timbers you're going to reuse, set all those settings, and then you would draw the roof shape, and it will automatically cost a refurbished roof for you, or in this case, a retiled roof. Okay, now for today's purposes, I'm just going to draw a normal roof, which I'm then going to set as being not estimated, so that I can then tee my extension into it. So I'm just going to draw a cold cut roof. I'm going to go with a standard spec because the specification doesn't matter because this is existing, but I'm going to go through this in more detail when we draw our proposed roof. Now what I'm going to do is match up my tiles for the visuals. So I'm just going to go with a concrete interlocking type, double Roman should do nicely. I'm just going to draw an apex roof. Keep it with a 45-degree pitch so it's nice and obvious. I'm going to stick my roof on my house. So I'm going to have my gables at the end. So I'm going to click on my wall, do my two corners, and then my third corner. That's now giving me apex. Okay. If we go back to my 3D model, refresh it to give me my gables. And there we go. Now you'll notice here that we've suddenly got a cost. That's because we've drawn the roof. So what I need to do now is just select the drawing, click on the estimating button and do set selection as existing. It will ask me if I want to set this component, and obviously we've only got the roof that's existing. If we had other items, it will pick those up as well. Click yes. We now have back to, here's our existing property with a cost of 0. Okay, so this is now giving me something to work with to now start doing my extension and any renovation jobs we want to do. So I'm just going to have an extension coming out this side with a valley roof teeing in. So we're going to start back on our walls, and this time we're going to go into a bit more detail explaining about how these work. So we're going to carry on with brick and block. This time we're going to look at the type of brick and block wall we build, and you'll see here that we have different thermal performances, and this is obviously all to do with building regs and all the SAP side of things. Typically for an extension, it's not so sensitive. As long as the extension is less than 25% of the property, you can build a standard brick and block wall with a U value of 0.26. And we basically have a full fill cavity or partial fill cavity, depending on which is your preference. If you are building a new build or a very large extension, then you're more likely to have to choose a 0.17 thermal value wall. And these tend to be 340 mm thick instead of a 302 thick. So they have a 140 mm cavity and a lot more insulation. For today's purposes, we're going to go with a 302 wall because normally that's going to be in keeping with what's on the existing property. Now, before I select this, I'm actually just going to review the specification, and this is basically the makeup of the wall. Now, I'm only going to go through this on the walls, but you can do this review specification on everything that you draw an estimate. At the end of the day, you probably when you initially look at the software, you might do a lot of having a look at these. But once you get the hang of it, you'll realise that actually most of the time you go with what we've already got. So let's have a look on this wall. And so the specification is made up of an assemblies. The first assembly here is actually the wall, and then there's assembly for the skirting, and then assemblies that work around doors if we put them in. If I open up the brick assembly, this is then made of rates. So you've got a rate for the brickwork, a rate for the unventilated cavity, a rate for the insulation, a rate for the blockwork, etc. And these are all the things that make up the wall. If I then go into my brickwork, I've then got my bricks, my mortar, and then of course our actual labourers. The most obvious thing we can do here is you can actually change the brick that we're using. So if I click on the swap button, this gives me an array of bricks. So of course, one thing that you want to do whilst you're estimating is choose a brick that's approximately the correct price that you're estimating. There's no point in us using the default 64p brick, for example, if you're going to be using a £1 brick in the job. So I'm going to select this £1 brick here, because that's the price of the brick that I'm going to be using, because that's the one that's going to be in keeping with the existing property. One thing you'll notice here, you'll see that the rate up here is £167 a metre. If I select this brick, it immediately jumps up to £189 a metre. Okay. You'll see that the thermal U value is here. If we went and did the same thing and changed insulation, for example, it would automatically change the U value of the wall. We're going to stick with 0.26 because that's standard for an extension. So now I'm happy with that. I've got my correct brick chosen. I'm going to click Next. For extension, I'm going to draw a ground floor first, and what that does is it automatically triggers us into the footing and foundation side of things as well. Ask me what sort of foundation I want. So I've got trench fill, strip fill, and reinforced strip fill. I'm going to do a trench fill to an extension, and what that will do is it will automatically select a mini digger for excavation purposes. If you're going to be using a JCB, you can actually do trench fill to a new build. That will choose a JCB, and of course, often when you're working on an extension, you can't get any mechanical diggers in the back garden because of access issues, and you might have to hand dig it, in which case you've got the hand digging option. That will of course allow then for many hours of manual excavation. For today's job though, I'm going to assume I can get a mini digger in the back garden, and I'm going to go with this option here. It then asks you for your concrete trench fill depths. So you can see you can adjust these up and down. 600 fairly typical. Depth below site strip, a metre, fairly typical. Concrete thickness, 750, again fairly typical. You can adjust these up and down. For example, building control might have told you need to do a deeper foundation because of ground conditions, maybe potential root ingress from next door neighbours, that kind of thing. We'll click Next. What sort of footing we're going to have? So this is a standard wall, so I'm going to go with 100mm block footing. And we want trench fill settings for the footing. And this, of course, then zeroes out all the things like the trench blocks. If we'd gone with a strip fill, we'd have been putting the blocks in, but we're not. So this has left these out, and again, you can adjust these dimensions up and down to suit. And then finally, we're on to the actual detail of the wall. So just here, you can see that we have, by default, this is a 2625 wall. So it's assuming typically this might be the ground floor wall of a two-story house. So with a typical ground floor wall of a two-story house, you would be doing a wall that internally is 2400 floor to ceiling, for example, with a 225 allowance, so thus making the wall 2625. And if you were doing that, you would also have 225mm of unplastered and undecorated wall internally. So that's what this is making an allowance for. Okay. Now in our example here, I'm going to do a single story extension, so I'm actually going to change that to 0, and I'm going to change my wall height to 2400. Because it's a single story house. It's a single story wall in this case. Click on next. And it's going to start popping up extra questions. So do I want a concrete pump for my strip foundations? I'm going to say yes please. I'm going to have one of those for a day, and that will then make an allowance for it. Click on next. It's asking me about prime cost for the brick and block plaster fill. I'm happy with this cost of £1. My brick's £1. Click finish. And I'm now ready to start drawing my extension. So I'm going to start mine from the corner here. Okay, and I'm moving my mouse out this way. And the reason I'm doing that is I can see that I've got this lined up with the correct corner. And I've also got my arrow pointing outwards. So you see that arrow that's vertical, that is pointing towards the outside of the house. If I just press my F key to flip this, that's now pointing to the inside. If I drew that, that would be incorrect. That would be the block work on the outside and the brickwork on the inside. So I need to make sure I do this correctly, because when we put the roof on and when we put windows and doors in, they look for things like the wall plate position and the blockwork position for positioning so the roof will be inside out. Windows will have the window sill on the outside instead of the inside, so it all goes wrong. So one thing that's fairly important to do is make sure that your wall outside is on the outside. So again, I can now draw this by using my arrow. So I'm going to go right arrow, and I'm going to have this extension 4500. I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to go down arrow. I'm going to go 4 meters, press enter, and then left arrow 4500. So I'm just using the arrow keys to draw it. It's really, really easy. Again, if you had an imported drawing from an architect, just a PDF or a DXF, you would just actually trace over the top of it. Now what's different this time is now that we've just drawn those walls in, bottom right hand corner, you'll see we have a cost immediately, £9,596, so we've costed it straight away. If I click on my estimate over here on the left hand side, I now have wall data, footing, foundation data. I've got some roof and dormer data, but it's 0 because we switched it off. We set that roof as non-estimated. And we'll see there we've got 3 walls, 3 footings, 3 foundations. So we've immediately got the estimate being created, and I can flick between the two, but I might as well stay in the drawing because we've barely started. If you have a quick look at our 3D model, we can see we're underway. Now one thing that's important is because we've just drawn some walls, it's prompting us for some extra items. So this is a good thing about BuildingWorks, is that when you draw stuff or estimate things, it will actually ask you about other items that you may or may not want, put them on screen for you so that you can then estimate them. So the most obvious one here is wall starters. So we need 4 wall starters. So I can either draw them by clicking on the draw button, and then I can position these on my drawing badly. Or if I don't want to put them on my drawing, you see that I've got 2 there, I can simply go, please give me another 2. If I just expand this a little bit, I've now got a total of 4. So you can draw them if you want to show them, or you can actually just add a quantity so you can estimate that way. So you can say, there you go, I'd like 12 wall starters please, possibly a bit excessive for this job. So you can literally estimate by putting figures in if you don't want to bother drawing them. Things like wall starters, you probably don't need to draw them because hopefully you guys on site will know where the wall starters are going to be positioned. Things like plug sockets, which we're going to show later, you can draw them on the drawing so you can position them, or again you can just add in quantities. So now I've got this far, I'm actually just going to hit my save button and call this Ed's demo, very excitingly. So I'm ready to carry on. So next, I think I would like a floor slab. So to do that, I'm going to go to my floor option, concrete slabs. We then have a range of different slabs with different finishes, ones with underfloor heating piping built in, and of course different U values. So I'm going to choose this one here, reinforced concrete slab with a screed finish, insulation above the slab with a basic thermal performance. Again, the basic thermal performance is the one required for an extension. If it's a new build, you would need a high thermal performance. The ultra high is where you have a client or an architect who is very demanding. So I'm going to go with this option, click on finish, and this is really good. So to put this in here, I just put my cursor in this area, and there's a hotkey down here telling me I can use the letter F for fill. So there's my cursor, letter F, there's my slab, done, and I've just estimated the slab that easily. Of course, again, it's given me some options here. Do I want a concrete pump for the slab? Yes, please, I'll have that for a day. Do I want it for screed? Possibly, so let's put a day in for today's purposes. And do I want some insulation to the perimeter? Yes, I do, and I'm going to need to draw that because I could actually type in a figure if I know how long that is, so I could do some maths. But it's probably as easy just go, let's draw my insulation, and that's going to go from here, this corner, to this corner, to this corner. There we go, job done, insulation. So now we're up to 12,400 without even breaking a sweat. So next, I'm going to want a structural opening here so our client can get into their extension. So I'm going to put a little 3-meter opening in there. So I'll go to Openings and Steelwork, Structural Opening. What's my width? So let's say 3 meters. We have our opening height and the lintel bearing, typically 150. You can of course adjust this up and down. Click Finish. Okay, and I can position this by measurement, or I'm going to go actually into snap mode and put this in the middle. Okay, and again, now, because this is an existing wall, it's asking me what's going on here. So, am I putting an existing structural opening? So there might be one already there. For example, there might have been a greenhouse here previously that you've demolished, and you're now putting in a real extension. In this example, I'm going to say that I want to form a structural opening. So, because we've drawn the correct existing wall, this will then give us the correct cost for the cutting into forming of the opening, removal of spoil, and of course fitting in the lintels. It's going to ask me what sort of lintel I want. So we have all sorts of options. You see there's a huge array here. If I filter by 3000 opening, this gives me some automatic ones. So I could say go with a catnick. I could choose, say, let's say with an EV100. Click Next. And then again, it will ask me for my second lintel. I can choose another one. So you can have 2 lintels, or you can choose cavity lintels by all sorts of filtering. So there's about 300 lintels in there, so there's a huge range. You've also got all the concrete ones, etc. So whether you want to do 1 lintel or 2 lintels, you can choose a system. I'm going to go with 2 of these. For my finishing, do I want noggins? So I'm going to say yes. It's just asked me to confirm my lintel bearing. Click Finish. And that's now costed our structural opening. And again, it's asking us, do we want to put some options in? So, do we want some pad stones of assorted size? It's also asking for cavity weep vents. So, if this opening was going to be external, we might want to put some in. And of course, do we want some props? So, I'm going to say pad stones. I'm going to have 4 of those. I'd like 3 props. And yes, I'm going to have a lintel lifting piece of equipment. And that is my structural opening now costed. Up to £14,000, going good. So next, I want to put a bifold door in this end. So I'm going to go to Architectural, Doors. I'm going to go for an aluminium bifold door. Again, I want something around 3 meters, so I'm going to filter for a 3 meter door. I can then choose things by, say, U value. Do I want an expensive or cheaper one? It's an extension, so we can get away with a lower value. I can even then choose a colour. So let's say we'll have a nice grey one. And then it's just the opening configuration. So 3 right, 1 left, 2 right, 2 left, 1 right, or 3 left, none right. So I'm going to go with none left, 3 right. Reveal depth, again, typically 150. I'm going to position this. And once again, it's going to ask me for my lintel. And I'm going to go straight for a nice cavity lintel. That's automatically put it in, and it's going to ask me again, do I want some cavity weep vents? Well, this is an external one, so I'm going to say yes, I'd like 2 cavity weep vents. That's now costed, and we can nip back to our 3D model. And we're building up. So next, of course, we want a roof. So we can do a vaulted roof, or a roof with a flat ceiling. So for this I'm going to do a flat ceiling roof. You can, of course, actually also draw a roof that's an attic roof where you're going to be putting in an attic. So if this was going to be an attic room above, you would use the attic option, and when you use that, the extra items on the right hand side will give you things like the upstands and all your trimmers and all the things that go towards making an attic conversion. It also give you, so instead of giving you a standard 100mm floor, it will give you an option to do a proper joisted floor. For today's example, I'm just going to do a standard cold cut roof with a flat ceiling. Again, I can choose my specification, so I'm going to go with a basic thermal with 400 centres. And next, then it's going to ask me what tiling system, because of course this will have an enormous impact on the cost. If you go with, say, a clay plain tile versus a large format concrete interlocking, the clay plain will be significantly more expensive. So of course you want to choose the right sort of tile for cost purposes, but also it needs to be in keeping with the property. We want to go with a dry fix. And then we're going to choose our shape. So this is going to be an apex extension teeing into an existing roof. So it's this shape here we're after. So I'm going to choose this top option, and you can see, of course, we can do hips, barn hips, and you've also got lean-tos. We've got hip-ended lean-to, and coming the next few weeks will be a lean-to with a hip at both ends. So I'm going to choose my apex shape, pitch the roof, so I'm going to stick with 45. Okay, and then we've got options here that we can actually put some prices in. So those concrete interlocking tiles, if you know that you're paying £1.20 for them, well, let's just change the price to £1.20 each. Same with your mono ridge, etc. So you can just change these around, and you say this is a known price. Nice and simple. So it's very handy that, because obviously tile prices are very variable. Concrete interlocking covers, I don't know, 500 different types of tile. So if you're choosing, it could be something as a Marley Modern, but it could be something very specific. You're matching it up to the house. You've got a special price on it. Put it in here. That will then give you the correct cost. Once you've filled this in, click Finish, and we're now ready to draw the roof. And the instruction window down here is always telling us what to do next. So it says click on a wall that the roof is on. So that's going to be my extension. And what this does is it defines where the wall plate is so that the roof is drawn at the right height. So I'm going to click on here. Instruction window then says click on the first corner to indicate the width of the building. So first corner, second corner gives me my gable. Okay, and then I want to tee into the existing I want to tee into my existing roof. And one thing I'm just actually going to do is I'm just going to switch my view into sketch mode, because you see I've got it's quite busy here and I might not tee correctly. If I go to sketch mode, it makes the drawing nice and clean and a lot easier to see, so I can make sure that I actually hit this roof line when I'm teeing. And I did it completely badly. Let's do that again. wall, corner, corner, and press the letter T. And there we go, it's done it correctly this time. Okay, the sketch mode is quite handy because you can switch between this detailed mode or a quite clean mode for when you're drawing, so it's quite handy for drawing things. Some people actually like to, if you find that you get to the stage where you're sending drawings out to clients as well, whilst an architect would tend to like this sort of format, quite often this is a lot friendlier on the eye, so you might want to send that kind of thing out to people. Which is a handy little change of view that you can do. You can also do things such as, you see where we've got this floor being displayed here. I can go to my layers and I can just hide my floor. Okay, so it disappears from the drawing. You'll see it's still in the estimate, so my price is there, 19,899. Click on my floor, switch it on, 19,899, switch it off, 19,899. All I'm doing is just hiding it from the plan view. It just makes it a bit neater. Now, when we drew our roof, we have some extra items, and the top one here that we've got to do is an insulated ceiling. So I could probably do with drawing a ceiling, because if I don't, I will have no ceiling cost. So I'm going to click my draw button, and again, I can draw around it, or I can cheat. I can use the F, put my cursor there, press the F key, and that's drawn my ceiling. Now, what it's done is it's made a decision on which way it thinks the joists are going to go. Well, that's fine. They're the wrong way round. If I click on my joists, I can toggle the direction to the correct way around, or I can toggle them back. So simply by clicking on them, I get a toggle option. It's the same if you draw a timber floor. When you put a timber floor in, you get given an option to do it horizontal or vertical, but if you do it the wrong way around, you can very quickly toggle them to the correct direction. We've also got options here to draw like a loft hatch. I can draw in a purlin if I want to, binders, I can put in more cavity weak vents, stop end trays, etc. So any of these items, I can just say I'd like to make an allowance for one of those, for example, for costing purposes. If we go to our 3D model, we can see where we're at. The other quite good thing with the 3D model, this is quite handy, is that whilst you're drawing your job, if I go to visibility, I can switch off existing components. So I can actually now just see what I've drawn, what is being estimated. Now on this job, this is obviously very simple, but you might have a job that's quite complicated where you've got a mix of extensions and bits of renovation inside and outside the house, attic conversions again. By doing this, you can switch off the existing and you'll be able to actually visualize what you've estimated so far by drawing and get an idea of where you're up to and see if you've missed anything. You can also do things like, I can hide that wall, and I can see inside. Or I can switch everything back on. Okay, so that's the main structure of our extension drawn. You can see we've got a cost now, we're up to about £21,000 cost. Show you some of the handy tools you've got with the drawing. If I click on this wall here, I have a dimension button, so I can dimension my drawing up very quickly. If I want my end wall, click here. I can put those dimensions in externally, or I can put them in internally. Okay. Major benefit to you as a builder is that you might have a drawing that you've got from an architect and you're tracing over the top of it, but the architect's drawing lacks dimensions or lacks some of the detail that you want. So you can actually start to produce a drawing that's a lot more useful to you to have on site. So whether it's you or you're giving it to your guys on site, you can print out a copy of the drawing and you can switch different things on for different trades and give them different versions of the drawing. So they've got something that's a lot easier to use on site. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every single option on here because otherwise it'll be a 3-hour demo and you'll all fall asleep. But just to give you a rough idea what else we have in here, of course we have attic conversions, dormers. You can draw all your drain runs, your soakaways, manholes, etc. External work, so decking, fencing, paving, site strip, draw your turfing. all the plumbing, boilers, radiators, all your pipe work, and you can put these in, or you can just put in the cost. Electrics, and then renovation work. Okay, so I'm going to jump to electrics just to show you some things on that, and then I'm going to show you how the renovation works, because I think you'll be quite amazed. So for electrics, and this is same as the plumbing, you choose a type of electrical item you want. So I'm going to start off with a plug socket. You've got plug sockets going into new walls, and then you've got renovation plug sockets if you're going to be fitting plug sockets into existing walls, because they'll do things like make an allowance for chasing walls and replastering, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to do some plug sockets in my existing walls here, and I'm going to go for stainless steel. Click Finish. This then gives me an array of sockets to choose from. So I've got ground floor and upper floor sockets. The main difference being there that the ground floor sockets have, I think, 5 meters of cable automatically, and the upper floor ones have 4 meters of cable, or vice versa. But basically, each time you put a socket in, it is the socket, the back box, grommets, etc., an allowance of cable to go towards the ring main, and of course an allowance of labour. So I could just say, for this extension, I just want 4 double sockets, please, and I could leave it as that. Say, thanks very much, that's now estimated. It's that quick and easy. Or I might actually want to position the sockets on there to show my labourers where they're going, and I can get really snazzy here, because what I can do, I can go to my drawing and annotation, and I can put a dimension on the drawing. So I'm going to click linear dimension, and let's say that I want a plug socket to be 1 meter away from this corner. So I can click this corner, and that then gives me an arrow that's ready to go. I'm going to press the left arrow on my keyboard and type in 1000, which will give me a meter. Press enter. And there you go, I now have a 1 meter dimension. Put that on my drawing. I then go, right, let's go my ground floor double socket. Let's position that there. So what I've done there is I've now got a symbol for my plug socket, and I've actually put a dimension on, so your electrician knows that that plug socket is going to be a meter away from that wall, and of course 400 mil from the floor. It means he doesn't have to phone you up and say, why do you want this plug socket? And you can do that with everything: radiators, plug socket, light fittings, light switches, all the electrics. You can position them on the drawing, give an exact dimension, or you can just put them in for a price. So if we say, let's say kitchen electrics, for example, I could just say, let's just make an allowance for 6 downlights, for simple as that. That's just give me a cost. So if I don't want to position them, I'll work that out later. I can just get a cost. Fused spur, I'll have one of those, please. I have a cooker circuit and solid wall. There you go, I've just costed it. So estimating the electrics is really fast. It's just literally as fast as you going, I'll have 2 of those, 3 of those, 4 of those, please. Same with general electrics, bathroom electrics, plumbing electrics, light switches. So you can draw them if you want to, or you can just say, I'll have this quantity. Okay, so that's my extension drawn and fairly costed. So I'm not going into all the details, but I think this gives you a good idea. So what I'm going to do now is actually show you some renovation, because quite often you may be doing renovation work either alongside an extension, or you could just have a renovation job. So to do this, I'm going to go to my Rooms tool, and I'm going to do a survey. So I'm going to survey all my rooms, and that's now given me 5 rooms. Okay, so I'm going to take particular interest in room 4 and room 5 here, and I'm just going to switch to sketch mode just to clean this up. So room 4, I can click on that. I'm going to give this a name as, that's going to have this as my living room. And room 5, which is our new room, I'm going to give this room, I'm going to say that this is now my new dining room. Okay, so the first part of renovation I want to do is, this dining room is glued onto what was an external wall. So we've put a structural opening in here, and we've costed a structural opening, and we've got all the making good on it. But what we do have is some brick wall to the side of the structural opening and above the top of it, and of course we need to plaster that. So I'm going to click on my dining room, and I want to do some wall and ceiling renovation. Okay. I've got my whole room selected, or if I click on different walls, I can see which ones they are, and there we go. So wall 3 is the wall in question on the left hand side. So I want to do some plastering on wall 3, and I'm just going to do some dot and dab skimmed plasterboard. Click next, tell it that I want wall 3. It's recognised as a structural opening, so it's going to not bother with all this area in the middle. Click finish, click OK, job done. We've now just estimated that. And if I want to, I can actually show where that finish is on the drawing. Okay, well, let's imagine that whilst you're there, the client said, well, can you please redecorate this room? So if we go to our living room, wall and ceiling renovation, I've got my whole room selected. Let's go decoration, let's go internal decoration, just want to do the walls. Yes, I'm going to do the living room. I'm going to do all 4 walls and the ceiling. Next. It's recognised as a structural opening and there's a couple of doors, so it's omitted those areas. It's given me a PC sum figure if we're going to do a door strip. Click finish, click OK. That room is now decorated. If I go to rooms, I can see my different options. So I can say, let's have a look, where's my decoration? There it is. Where's my plastering? There it is. So we just costed the decoration of that room. You can do things where, if I choose this one here, I can actually select all rooms, for example. And I could do a job where we were doing internal decoration, and I can decorate the entire house in about 4 clicks. So I could go decorate. Let's have every room in the house. Okay, I know I've already done some, but just for demonstration purposes, let's go next. All those walls. It's recognising where all the openings are because we've put them in. Finish. Click OK. There you go, we've just decorated the entire house. Now obviously these rooms have already done something with, but you get the principle. Of course, if we put external windows in, like we have with this external door, it will omit those areas. So when you draw your existing property, you do need to fill in all your windows and doors for all the rooms. That will then give you the correct area calcs. Okay, and if I then think, actually, I've gone a bit too mad with all that decoration there. If I go back to my rooms, I can actually just delete them all, delete all my room finishes, start again. So let's just go back in here and let's just renovate this room. So I'm going to do a survey. This room here, wall 3, and let's just plaster that wall. So it's this quick to estimate renovation. Done. So that's an extremely powerful tool, and you can do all sorts of combinations within here. Under the renovation fitting out, you've got whole room renovation, so you can do complete hacking and plastering combinations, or just a plaster and reskim. You can strip and replace decorative joinery. You might want to just do some hacking. You've also got lath and plaster removal for older houses. You've got decoration of walls, or decoration including sorted wall furniture. You've also got options for just fitting coving or dado rails, etc., or just decorating these individual items. So you can go down to a really low level. And in the plastering, we've got standard one, and also we've got skimming with overboarding. So if you're overboarding a ceiling as opposed to hacking it and replacing it, you've also got that option as well. Quite common if you're coming across an Artex ceiling. And you can do a pick and mix on these. So you can have an overboarded ceiling, but just say a decorated wall, for example. Which makes the renovation of existing properties really, really quick and easy. Okay, so that's my estimate kind of done, and you can see that I've got my drawing, but my estimate's been running along side by side. And we can see all the estimating tasks we've been doing. So we've got our walls, doors, floors, there's plug sockets we put in, We've got our plastering that we've just been doing and our decoration, all running at the same time, and we can flick between the drawing and the estimate. Simple as that. So let's have a quick look at the actual estimate itself. Now, one of the tools we have here is an estimate checker. So if I click on this button, I get this alert that says I've got some estimating calculators I might not have finished. So I click on here, and it's saying to me, my dot and dab skin plasterboard, there's no sundries. Let's go back to my drawing and have a look. And it's there going, do I want some corner bead for the plastering? Do I want to remove a radiator or refit a radiator? So in which case I can go, no, I don't need any of those, that's fine. So I can go back to my estimate, back to here. I can say, no, that's absolutely fine. And brick and block wall, there's no sundries there. Do I want them? I'm going to say, no, that's fine. Actually, I've already had a look at that. And it's given me some other ambers to look at. Commonly used estimating calculators that we haven't yet looked at, things like design costs, cleaning, scaffolding, prelims, etc. So it's given me a warning saying we haven't done those, and that's correct, because you can't draw a travel cost. So if we close this down, now that we're on the estimate menu, we have some extra options here, such as demolition. So you might be knocking down an existing greenhouse, property, etc. Slab demolition and roof demolition. You have fire stop options, and of course the big one is things like prelims. So fairly common one, travel costs. Something that builders often neglect, but it's a big impact on your business. This is quite easy. You can say travel costs, so I've got a medium van. I'm doing, let's say, 100 miles a week, and we're going to be on the job for 8 weeks. There we go, that's given me a cost 560 quid. Fantastic. Job done. Let's go back to my prelims. Let's see what else we've got. Let's go into our main preliminary costs. Health and safety costs. Okay, yeah, I've got some of those. We've had to buy some signage. I've done some paperwork, and I'm going to make a £200 allowance. Insurance, yeah. Our insurance indemnity on this job is going to be £300. No security, no traffic regulation. No, that's done. Excellent. Go back to my estimate. What other prelims have we got? Let's have a quick look. Is there any sundry plants that we'd like to take into account? We're going to buy some toolkits, etc. Yeah, I think I'm going to want a concrete mixer. I'm going to want one of those in 2 weeks. And I think I want a poker. I'm going to have one of those for 2 weeks. So all those little extra things, you can just add them in. You can even do things like say, I'd like to actually, when I'm cleaning up the job at the end, I'm just going to have a 6-yard skip on site just for mop up. So I'll just make an allowance for one of those. All the way up to usual ones. So you can just keep adding those until you fill all your prelims. You've also got options for management staff. So depending on how big the company is, you may have that you've got people who are paid, site managers, project managers, etc. Again, if you've got those sort of guys, you can put in, choose a rate. Of course, you can adjust the rates of these people and how many weeks they're on site, or partial weeks. If I go back to my estimate checker, I've now got a lot of green, so I've just got a few here. I can go, right, I've got no design costs, site strip I've done, I don't need any scaffolding, or I need to go back and do cleaning, right, that's the one to finish. And so I'm getting rid of my reds, getting to green, but this is basically has been flagging up stuff that I've forgotten, so I cannot forget it. I'm back in here, management site staff, oops, I had a look at that, but I didn't put a cost in, I better go and do it. Okay, so it keeps flagging up to say, by the way, you've forgotten this, please check it, make sure it's right. Because one of the worst things you can do is miss something big out of an estimate. So other thing on the estimate dashboard that's quite important is our markup and adjustment. And we've split this into 2 sections for your profit. The first part is your overhead markup. So for a typical small building company, you tend to run with approximately a 15% overhead. So this is assuming that you are the builder or you're part of the building team. So you're doing some work on site, but you're also doing estimating, material ordering. You're also talking to customers, dealing with everything else that goes on. some of your salary is not to do with building, so it's off-site salary that needs to be covered. You may also have an office, you've got a company phone, you've got computers, etc. So all those sort of costs for a typical small building company normally comes out around about 15% of the job cost. So your 15% markup here, that's your fixed cost. So that's your that's the absolute minimum you need to cost. If you're a bigger building company and you do things like you put in costs for management staff, you can probably drop this down to around the sort of 10% mark. Okay. The profit markup, this is your actual money you are going to make. So this is where everyone's been paid, the office rental's been paid, the car rental's been paid, etc. How much money are you going to make after that? And this is where you adjust your sales price to your customer. So when you're doing your estimate, you put everything in the estimate. You don't omit travel costs, it's a real cost. You don't omit insurance costs, it's a real cost. You build all those in. The way you then control your sales price is by making this higher or lower. So if you think the end price is a bit high, you can drop these down to 10%. So that's your net figure. If it's a job that you're desperate to get, go down to that. Okay. The company's fixed costs are being covered, you're still making a bit. If you're super desperate, maybe you do that. You're just making a couple of pounds. So things are tight, you want the business. By doing that, everyone gets paid, and hopefully the company will make a few pounds to go towards a Christmas meal or something. Okay. But that's the bit there where you control your sales price. Okay. Plant allowance, just to skip across to here. Where we've got estimated for skip, you'll see here we've got 2.5 skips in the job. Well, I would like to round that up. So it's going to add the cost. So I've now going to cost for 3 skips. Okay. It doesn't affect the figure here, but when we go to have a look at the reports in a minute, it's added that extra 0.5. So you can have a quick look up and down any plant that's been estimated, round them up or down if you want to. The skip is obviously the big one, maybe things like diggers. Some of the smaller plants, it's probably fairly insignificant cost. But the big stuff, for example, skips, if you've got 2.2 skips and you've got to order 3 skips, well, that's probably 180, 200 pounds of the skip that's not been estimated, but you still got to order it. Okay, you might even look at that and say, well, actually, I've got 2.5 skips, I'm going to round that up to 3. I'll tell you what, I'll get rid of that skip that I ordered extra. I'll take that out of my my sundry plant that I added in because I didn't realise I had so much spare skip. Okay, but that's very good for getting so that your plant cost is correct. So now I've finished with my estimate, and the next thing I want to look at is my Gantt chart. So this is my build program. So I can choose a start date for my job. So let's say the customer wants this to start early June. I can tell it how many different types of labourers. So I've got 2 bricklayers and I've got 1 of everybody else. Click finish. And it does my build program, and this is now calculated because we know how long it takes to do these tasks. My masonry shell is going to take me 4 days about because I've got 2 bricklayers. If I adjusted that to say 1 bricklayer, that would jump into probably sort of 6 or 7 days. So there's my build program. You can export that as a picture. You can put on your quote to supply to your customer as part of your sales process. You might just want to keep that to yourself. That's entirely up to you. Because we've now done this, it means we can now look at our reports, and all the reports which are date-based, such as, say, cash flow or profit forecast, will now give us figures. Reporting, there are lots and lots of reports in here. So this is essentially all the back office stuff that you need for managing your business from the construction side of things. So for example, you can go in and have a look at your bricklayers costs. Okay, this message will keep popping up, by the way, until we tell it to stop popping up. So here we have our bricklayers costs, and we've got this broken down by build phase. So you can drill down into that. So you can have a look at your decorators costs, electricians costs, etc. You can have a look at your cash flow. This is done by date, and this is basically because we've got our build program, we can now see where you've got money going out, and that's based on you having to pay invoices and materials or pay your labourers. You can of course use this to help yourself create a stage payment plan with your customer, because obviously you don't really want to be financing the build. You'd like to be getting money from the customer to be able to cover your invoices. You can get a general costs report. This is by build phase. Or you can have cost by resource type. So however you want to look at the data, there's a report in there. A very useful one, of course, is plant used or the plant's task list. So this will show you what you need, and it'll even tell you when you need it. So you can make sure you get all your plant ordered. So if there's any plant that you don't own and you've got to hire it and you need to book it ahead of the time, this tells you when you're going to need them, so you can make sure you got them on site on time. Profit forecast. Now this is showing the net profit. Okay, so with the overhead profit has been taken out. So this is the actual pound notes that you are going to make clear profit. It's your net profit figure. So you can see it as you're going along, and then you can see a final figure. So what that means is when you're actually at the point of negotiating with your client, if your client asks you to knock £4,000 off the price, you know that that's going to put you into a loss. So you can say, no, I'm not going to knock £4,000. If your client wants you to knock £2,000, you will then know, well, I'm going to make 3,300, and you can make a decision on whether you want to go that low or not. You might have a figure in your head thinking, well, I want to make £2,000 profit, so you can knock, say, £1,300 off ex VAT, and that's your lowest point. By knowing your approximate profit forecast, you will negotiate far better with the client, and you're far less likely to negotiate your price down to a point where you're actually making a loss on the build, because then it becomes pointless. Okay. Sales price including overheads and profits. So this is a report that's, again, very handy to look at yourself. So you can see your costs, our wastage is included, so that's your total cost including wastage, your overhead markup, your profit markup, and then your total figures. Okay, you can see this is all cost, this is all ex VAT, so again, this is a report you use yourself. And then the big report, of course, is your materials used. Every material you need in the job with the quantities. You can export this to Excel, and then in Excel, what I would do is I would get for each build phase, and I would put the delivery dates that I want these products on there, and then I would go to my merchant with your product description, your resource total quantity. Of course, you might want to round these up or down. Give that to merchant to say, right, I want these products delivered on such and such date. I want these products delivered on this date. I want these products delivered on this date. And you can basically do your entire build ordering list. You might do it, if it's a very large job, you might do it, certain build phases at a time, and then order more build phases a bit later on in the job as you see how the job's progressing. But you can basically create an order list so you're not constantly going to the merchant, because one of the builder's biggest waste of time is going to inform the merchant. To use a very rough analogy, when you do your food shopping, you don't go to Asda every night of the week. You go once and you do a week's shopping because it's far more efficient. It's exactly the same with your dealing with a merchant. Every time you go to a merchant, it probably wastes approximately 2 to 3 hours of your time. I know the coffee's good, but that isn't necessarily good enough. If you keep doing that week in, week out, it probably wastes across a year about £10,000 of your time. And the reality is that that's time that you are not either building or site managing or looking for more business or doing more estimating or playing golf, whatever is important to you. It is a waste of your time. So you can use this ordering list to order your materials far more efficiently. Okay. All right, so the last part of the software I'm going to show you this evening is, of course, the customer quote. So we're going to skip to the bottom here and go to our quote section. And we've got some formats we've already made, but you can modify these. You can have more or less detail. And when you've modified a format, you can actually then save it. So you've got your own version of the quote in this list. So if I show you an abbreviated quote by build phase, this is a very clean quote. So this is a very simple one. Of course, I didn't put my client details in at the start of the job, so that's a bit blank. It would have them on there. And you can put your company logo in. If I just click this edit button up here, you have an option to add in your logo. So you would find your logo JPEG, save it in here. Once it's in, it will always appear on your quotes in the future. That will appear on the front. Introductory letter, dear sir, and of course you can change this text to have your introductory letter. And then into build phases. Here we've just got a simple one with each build phase with just a cost for each type of thing. So we've got our labour, plants, materials, etc. So that's quite a clean one. I can go to the extreme here, which is a absolutely everything switched on quote. And you see this has got far more breakdown. So this has got details of materials, plant, quantities, all the individual costs. Okay, and every single thing in here you can switch on or off to suit. You might want the quantities but not the costs here. You might not want the quantities but you do want the costs. Okay, the beauty of that is you can set up a format that you like. You can set up a couple of formats. One very good trick is because you can produce this quote in a few seconds, we just hit the button and then I can just export this into either a PDF or you can export it to Word if you want to do a bit more editing. Quite a good trick is you do two versions of the quote. You do a mega version of the quote like this, and you sit down with your client and you talk through the quote and you explain it to them. By presenting them so much information, you're actually overcoming a lot of the questions that the client will have. If you don't get the client's signature there and then, you take that quote away with you, but you leave them of an abbreviated version of the quote behind for them to think of, so they then can't wave that under another builder's nose and say, here you go, cost off this. Okay, clever little trick. Down towards the bottom of the quote, I'm just going to do a lot of scrolling here because you can see there's a lot of detail. By the way, you see that the quote appears in build phase order. I've got a summary. Again, you can have it with or without the summary page. And then, of course, you have the acceptance letter. So for you and the customer to sign, and there's a copy for the customer and a copy for yourself. And then we have a blank terms and conditions page. So if you've got some terms and conditions that you've already made, again, in the edit section, terms and conditions is blank, so you can copy and paste your terms and conditions and save them in here, and then they'll automatically appear in your quote. And as I said before, you can export that to PDF if you just want to have it as is, or you can go to Word if you then want to do some further editing. Okay. And the last thing I'm just going to quickly show you is a little bit of price editing. So I'm just going to show you how to quickly change some labour rates, because of course that's obviously very dear to your heart. So if I click on my library here, this has all the materials, all the labourers, all the rates that are built into BuildingWorks, many thousands of them. I'm just going to quickly show you how we can adjust the labour rates. So I can select my labourers either by type, so I can just look at my bricklayers, or if I click on the folder above, I can actually look at all my labourers in one screen. As you can see, there's only about 40 of them altogether. So one thing that you would probably do when you initially get BuildingWorks is have a quick whiz through here and just tweak them. Basically, there are two prices for every labourer or material in the product. There's our price and there's your price. So I've got my bricklayer here at £25 an hour. So let's say you pay your bricklayer £20 an hour. If I right click on here, I go set price. Oh, I've already used them. There we go. Set price. So your price is £20 an hour, so that's what's known as me. So I change that to 20 and I click use. Okay, there you go. Your bricklayer is now set all the way across BuildingWorks in all jobs at £20 an hour. Okay, let's say on this job you've got a concrete floor specialist who's coming in who's really good, but you've just got in for this one particular job. I can right click, set price. Let's say that this guy is £40 an hour because he's the world's best concrete floor specialist. I can tell it to only affect this project and use him, and there we go. We have a £40 an hour concrete floor specialist, but just for this job only. He won't be changing other ones. Your electrician, well, I use the same guy all the time. He's £25 an hour. Right click, set price, £25 an hour. I don't want to take that. I want to use him on all jobs. There we go, job done. That's him set. So it's probably going to take you 10 minutes to review your labourers. Nice and simple. Materials, obviously a slightly larger job, but the prices we have in here are trade scraped. So what we now do is we go to lots of supplier websites, and we're not using people like Juice and Travis because they obviously tend to have these inflated prices. We're going to trade sites that sell online, so the prices are a lot closer to what you pay. They may be still slightly on the side of high, but they may be maybe 10% above. What you can do is once you've done an estimate, you would actually have a look at, say, the top 10 products by cost, and then go into here, find them and adjust those, because that will have the biggest impact on your job. By the time you've done 3 or 4 estimates, you'll have actually modified all the high cost items to be the correct price. It's probably going to take you 20 minutes, if that. And that's it. That is BuildingWorks, drawing an extension, doing a bit of renovation, creating a cost, a quote, and having a look at the reports. Now, if you've got any questions, on your sort of GoToMeeting box, which you've probably got hovering on your screen somewhere, you'll see there's a little chat box, so you can type questions in there and ask away. So I'm just going to get a quick glass of water. If you'd like to type some questions, I'll give you a minute to do some typing, and I'll come back and answer some for you. Okay, I obviously did a really good job because I've just got one question from Paul, which is about the tile picking. I think you just missed that because you came in late there, Paul. So when you go to draw a roof, you go through the process of selecting your specification, and then we've put in a picking system. So we've got a range of clay tiles, things like fibre cement, Marley Moderns, and we've got a range of slates as well, natural slate, Welsh slate, etc. And whenever you choose one of these, you then get a screen where you can actually then put in prices for these items, because obviously they're very variable. So, for example, your natural slates there could be £5.70 each, or they could be £7.50 each, or whatever. So, if you know that you're paying £3 each for those, you can then change it. So that allows you to always have the correct price for your tiling. The reason we do this on our roof tiling is because they're very, very variable. It's an area where there's often different prices. Because natural roofing slates is a description which covers hundreds of different products depending where in the country. You could be using Welsh slate, of course, which is the best. You might be using slightly cheaper, say Spanish slate, or you could be using something horrible like Chinese slate or something like that. So hopefully you won't be using Chinese slate. You'll stick with the European stuff, which is a lot better. But you can put in a different cost to go with that. Mike, how many materials do we have? Let me just have a show you here. We have an enormous library of materials in the software. These are all types of materials. So if we go to say, let's have a look at our cement and aggregates, we have See all the different types. If I go to say, let's have a look at aggregates here. So you can see that that's our screen scrape price for ballast bulk bag. You guys are probably typically paying 35 or 36 pounds for one of those. So that's one of those products where you could just set your price that simple. If we show you the timber, there's an enormous range of timber products. Of course, we break them all different types, so things like your carcassing timber would all be under construction. And you see we break them down by the different sorts of sizes, so you can have a look at, say, all your 100mm timber, for example, and then you can have a quick whiz through editing the prices of those. You see, it's all very visual, so it makes it very, very easy to see and edit these. Carcassing timber, to be honest with you, is an area where you'd probably have a little bit of a look, because nobody advertises real prices for timber. Even the best trade scrape prices we've got still seem probably be about 20 to 30% above what you guys probably negotiate from your local merchant. So this is an area where you probably spend about 10 or 15 minutes just doing a bit of editing on your carcassing timber. Just go through your hundreds, your 47s and your 75s, stuff you use, the stuff you use a lot of. Again, things like maybe your structural timber. So that'll be your floor joists. Okay, any more questions, guys? Right, smashing. Well, I think that's it then. Well, thank you very much for watching this evening. If you do have any questions that you think of overnight or tomorrow, feel free to drop me an email. My email is ed@getbuildingworks.com. It's a nice and easy one to remember. Or give me a call. The phone number, still have the website, it's 0117 916 7880. I might just drop you a call tomorrow anyway, guys, just to say, did you like it? What do you think? Do you think it's for you? Would you like a further demo? Would you like a trial? If you do want to have any of those, again, feel free to ask. If you want to have a trial, if you go to the BuildingWorks website, there's a couple of trial options. You can have a standard trial, which is for 2 weeks. That doesn't allow you to use your work or export it, print it, and give it to clients, etc. You can go for a premium trial, where essentially you think maybe the software is for you. The premium trial gives you the full option, so you can use the software, do the trial, send quotes to customers, win business. I have a premium trial customer who's already won 2 jobs with the software. He's had it about a week. He's going to be signing up, he's already assured me. So it's a full system. And the way the premium trial works is you have 30 days. If you get to the end of the 30 days and you think the software is not for you, you just have to tell me that you don't want the software, and we then stop we don't go on to the subscription. If you think the software is for you, the subscription then just starts. Okay, so essentially you kind of get a month free if you go with the premium trial. And that's it. If you're not sure about which options you'd like on the premium trial, please feel free to give me a call. I'll have a chat through that with you. So thanks very much for watching tonight, guys, and I'll hopefully talk to you all soon.